Hello, everyone. My name is Calantha Tillotson, and as you may or may not know, I am the Human Resources Librarian, and I'm really excited to be so. And I am here right now to kind of take you through some of our APA resources, and how to cite a particular source and where to go if you're just not sure. I mean, obviously, you should come to me if you have any questions at all, but these are some of the resources that we have available to you. So to get started, let's go ahead and look at how to get to the library's resources, particularly the library's APA resources. First off, you should have a particular course guide. So if you see my face, if I've been in your class, then you can definitely use that course guide. But if not, you can also use just the regular human resources subject guide. So it has a lot of the same materials, but you don't have to remember which class you're in, which can be very helpful. So first off, you start at the library's homepage, just like we have here. Then you go to Library Research Guides. After that, we're going to click on Human Resources, and then we're going to click on Human Resources again. So as long as you remember Human Resources, you should be fine. Here I am. So yes, I am your librarian. Hi. But let's go ahead and go to the writing and citing resources. So these are all going to be specifically APA. So if we click on writing and citing, we have a whole lot for you here, like almost too much to go through, but there are some tutorials that you can go to if you're ever told that you need to do the academic integrity tutorial. You can find it right here. That's a really popular one. We have a tutorial here just about why you're supposed to cite sources, because it's not, in case you don't know, it's not just because your professor or your librarian tells you to. There's actually a lot more that goes into it. So that might be a really great resource. The other thing is you can come and ask me if you're like, I just don't understand why I have to cite my sources, and hey, I'm your girl. We can talk about it. There's also quite a bit here in the center box. We have different styles. So these are different formulas depending on the types of sources that you're looking at, and we'll go over that in more depth in just a little bit. There's also just some basics that you can look at. This is one of my favorites, quick answers about APA formatting. So I'm not going to really focus on formatting. That's something you're really going to be focusing on when you do your template, APA template, while you're there in the Human Resources Department. But if, say, you haven't done that yet, or even if you're in the process of doing it, here are some really good tips. So, it goes over running head, margins, it talks about lists, tables, some things that I probably haven't done in forever, so I would forget how to do. So this can be a really great resource. But honestly, the best resource, which I'm going to show you here, is the Purdue Online Writing Lab, so OWL for short. If you've been in a class with me, I generally squeal about it because it's super awesome. But also, it really is. I mean, it's very, very helpful. So I would actually go ahead and just save this to your browser, to your favorites, because you're definitely going to need to help to use it at some point. So yeah, this is really great. It can be, a lot of different styles, but specifically APA for you guys. What I recommend is you go to the Formatting and Style Guide. Now we're going to come back here and talk about in-text citations in just a bit on this particular video, but there's also a whole bunch more. One of my favorite things is that they actually give you a sample paper right here. You can download it, or you can just scroll through it if that's what you want to do. It's really nice to visualize what this is supposed to look at, which is what the template should do for you, that again, you're going to build while you're at ECU, but this might also help if you haven't gotten to that class yet, or if you're just curious, you're like, I forgot, how are the headers supposed to look? What is the title supposed to look like? How, am I supposed to do the references page? There's also one right here for you to look at. So this is a great resource, and I definitely recommend it. So let's go back to the writing and citing page, and let's kind of focus in on these types of sources. So as we all know, it really depends what kind of source you guys are going to use. It really depends on what your professor wants you to use. So always go with your professor. But depending on that, these are kind of the four most popular ones that you might run into while you're in human resources. The first one obviously is book. So here, let's go ahead. What I'm going to do is first, we're going to actually create different citations together for each of these types of citations. So let's go ahead and open up my Word document here, and let's start with book. So just in case you decide that you really want to use a book, which you might at some point, this is how you would want to go about doing it. So as you see right here, let's actually create an example based on this formula. So the first thing is, I'm just going to pretend that I've written all these things because it makes me feel really great that I've published all these things, even hypothetically. So let's pretend that I actually wrote this book. So it's going to be Tillotson, and then my first initial, period, and then my second initial, period. So you can guess what the R stands for. And then the year of publication has to go in parentheses. So let's say I wrote this this year. So 2016, it's almost not 2016, but yeah, 2016, and a period. And then we're gonna actually put the title of the work in italics. So let's say the work is, you may or may not know this yet, but I am obsessed with elephants. So let's say it's about elephants. So I would say Elephants and Wonder, colon, the search for, I don't know, friendship. Let's say that, because elephants are great and you should be friends with an elephant if you aren't already. And then period. Now there is a mistake that I put in here. First off, it needs to be italicized, just like I said. So we're going to go ahead and put that in italics. The second thing is the capitalization. So this is kind of a strange thing. If you've used MLA or any other citation style, you tend to not have to do this. But specifically for APA, you have to be careful about your capitals. So for instance, in a title, the first letter of the first word is going to be capitalized, so elephants, and then the first letter of the first word after a colon would be capitalized. So in this case, elephants should be capitalized, and the T in the should be capitalized, but wonder should not. So that would be the correct way to do that. Let's say I wrote this in, fun fact, I'm from Kansas, so we could say Kansas. Well, actually, we probably want to say, in case you didn't know, there is a Manhattan, Kansas, in Kansas. It's not anything like New York City. But then we do a colon, and let's say the publisher is, I have my own publishing house in this hypothetical order, so we're going to say Calantha's Pub, period. Okay, so that is what that would look like. We're going to go backspace, enter, and tab over. Because remember, everything after the first line in a citation needs to be indented over one. So that's what a typical book citation is going to look like. So let's now jump to articles. These are going to be probably the most types of resources you use, probably going to be articles. They're very easy to use. I definitely enjoy using them for my own research. So again, let's say that I wrote this article. So it's going to be Tillotson, comma, CR, let's say 2025. I don't know what I'll be doing in 2025, but writing this article. And then the next step, it's a little different from the book, because instead of italicizing the article title, it's actually going to be the journal title that you italicize. So the article title, let's say, I also really love books and reading them. So let's say I did something on in Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is awesome. So feminism in Harry Potter. Let's say that was librarians and literature. You probably should never entitle something that way, even if it would be really cool. Now, this actually highlights a exception to the rule in capitalizing in an actual article title. Harry Potter is the name, so it's what's called a proper noun. So in that case, both those letters would be capitalized. But that's it. It would not be italicized, it would not be in quotes, nothing like that. It's just going to look exactly like that. Now we actually are going to italicize the journal. So let's say that there's a journal called Magician, oh no, let's spell Magicians, right? Magicians Periodical. Yeah, sure, let's call it that. And then a comma, which will also be in italics. And then there are these two, well, actually 3 numbers, but the first one is going to be what's called a volume number. The second one is going to be an issue number. Now, this might be a little strange if you haven't used articles before to be able to tell the difference. Think of it this way. I've actually, if you've heard this before, just be like, yes, it's a great example. If you haven't, I hope this helps. So let's think of a journal as basically as a TV show. So the journal will have episodes and the journal will have seasons. So the volume are going to be the seasons. They're going to be the number of years that a particular TV show or journal has been going on. And then the episodes will be the issue number. So those will be the number of episodes or issues in that given year. So let's say in this case, I wrote this, it was the 5th volume of Magician's Periodical, and then we do a parentheses. Now the volume number needs to be italicized. Don't ask me why, it just does. But the parentheses does not. So we're going to take out the parentheses, and then we're going to say this is the 3rd episode or the 3rd issue for this year, for the 5th volume. And then we're going to do a comma, and then we do the page range. So let's say I wrote this, there's a lot of pages in Magician's Periodical. So let's say it was the 145th page to the 576th page. I had a lot to say about feminism in Harry Potter, okay? So then we would go ahead and do a period. Now, just like with the book, we're going to have to backspace this, and then enter, and then tab over. Now there's actually, this would be correct if we're just doing what's called a physical journal, but if you get this from an electronic journal, there's a couple things you need to add. The first one might be, let's say you have a URL for a particular journal. So you would do retrieved, or a particular article. You would say retrieved from, just like that, and then you would actually do the URL. So it would be http / magicians are awesome, something like that. But let's say you don't have the URL, but you have what's called the DOI number, which can be pretty confusing. Basically, not every article is going to have it. It depends on the database, but it's basically just a number that identifies that particular article. So you could, instead of retrieve from, you would do DOI, just like that, colon, and then it would just be this string of letters, and probably wouldn't look exactly like that, but basically that's what it's going to look like. And the other thing is, at the end of a article citation, you do not need to have a period, because even if it's a DOI number, no period. So that's very different from, say, up here for the book. Okay, so I have been super prolific, and I wrote a book, and I wrote an article. Now I'm going to create a web page. Yay! So again, I'm the author, so Tillotson, CR, and let's say I collaborated with someone on this webpage. So if you have more than one author, you still do the authors about the same way. So you have last name, first initial, middle initial, if they have it. And then you would do what's called an ampersand, and then you would have the next author's name. So let's say, let's say that is the person that I collaborated with. Yay, super fun times. And then we created this particular web page. Let's say it was 2007 and May 5th. I don't remember what I was doing then, but that's what I was doing in this hypothetical world. So then we have a period, just like with all the other citations. And then we actually have the title of the web page. So let's say that it is about, I already talked about Harry Potter and, oh, Sherlock Holmes. That's another great thing. So let's say that this particular web page is about Sherlock Holmes and Watson, a friendship of a life. Sure, period. That's what we're going to call it. Now, again, you might be like, well, but she capitalized those. I know, it's weird, but they're names, so they should be capitalized. So that's how I would do the title, and then you just do retrieved from, and then it would just be http:// let's say Tillotson, no, www.tillotsonmania.com. Yeah, let's say that's what it is. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of this line, backspace, enter, and then tab over. Okay, so the last one is personal interview. So let's say I went out and interviewed my favorite author, Ursula K. Le Guin. So I need to cite this in my paper. How do I do that? Very good question. Thank you for asking. So actually, as I put over here in the web page, surprisingly, the personal interviews do not need to be cited in the reference list, just like you would with all of the other, just like I had here. So in a real reference list, I would not have personal interview listed. But in this case, let's go ahead and say that you will actually, yeah, so let's just say that this is not a real reference list because it isn't. And let's pretend that this is what you would put in what's called the in-text citation, which is kind of a segue into what we will be talking about after this. So personal interview, I did this personal interview, I decided to quote it. So let's say, as Le Guin shouted, because she was very enthusiastic. Let's say fantasy literature is without any flaws whatsoever. I mean, it's pretty great. I don't know if she'd go that far. Okay, so now how do I actually say where I got this quote from? I would do colon. I would say her first initial, which is U, it stands for Ursula, pretty cool. And then I do period, and then her last name, which is actually Le Guin. It looks like two, but it's actually her full last name. Comma, I would say personal communication, because it was an interview. And then let's say I did this, ooh, I hope I can do this next year. For real, that would be great. Let's say I did this November 7th, 2017. And parentheses and then period. So that's how the personal interview would be cited. So yeah, those are the citations that we can look at. So the next thing is, just like I have right here, let's talk about in-text citations. So this is when it's not on your reference page, but it's actually in the paper itself. So for instance, if I was like, blah, 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 period, according to Smith, life is awesome. We don't have to be that enthusiastic. So life is awesome. And then we actually would need to quote, say, where did we get this quote? So instead of just being like, life is awesome, with parentheses, I mean, that's great. You want to, I mean, with quotes, you want to make sure you do that because it's an actual quote that I got from Smith. But you want to say, well, which resource did I get this from? So in this case, let's say that I quoted Smith in my first resource from my book. So the information I need to include would be the author's last name, so it would be Tillotson. Then it would be a comma, and then I would say the year, so 2016. It would be a comma, and then I would have a P, and then the page number that I got this from. So let's say 23, nope, sorry, 34. Page 34 is where I got this quote. And then I do a period. And that's what an in-text citation would kind of look like. But let's say you don't actually quote directly from it. So instead you do something like, let's say, Calantha believes in Harry Potter. Sure, I do. So let's say Calantha believes in Harry Potter. That is actually a paraphrase. It's not the actual quote. So in that case, you would basically just need to have where you got it from. So in this case, you would have, let's say I put that in the article. So I would have Tillotson Or the other way you could do it, if you didn't even want to put it, so that's the first option. You could do Tillotson and then the year, so 2025. But let's say you don't want to do that. You don't want to put it in parentheses. That's totally fine. You could say Tillotson, parentheses, 225, believes in Harry Potter. And you could take out the in parentheses, so the last little bit. So that would actually work. If you're paraphrasing, you could actually put the information right up here. So yeah, that's basically in-text citation. If you have more questions, which, you know, obviously this is not everything that you need to know about in-text citations, I actually do recommend you go to Purdue Out. Well, first I recommend that you talk to me because, again, I'm pretty cool and I know, you know, a bit about APA. But the other thing is you could go to Purdue OWL, and then you could go up here. There's two bits that are really really good. The first one is just about the basics of in-text citations. It actually breaks down, just like we did, the difference between, we did a short quotation and we did a summary, but this actually talks about block quotes that you might do. So that would be a good place to look. The other thing is authors. Sometimes it's confusing to figure out, well, if I have two authors, how would I put that in there? And actually, surprisingly, you are going to be putting, so let's say you quote from Wagner and Petty, you would do Wagner and Petty with an and, but if you actually put them in parentheses at the end of the sentence, you would do an ampersand, just like we did. This is what an ampersand looks like, in case you forgot, because it's a weird word. So again, that might be a little confusing unless you actually are doing it. So if you do not know, you can go here, you can talk to me, whatever kind of floats your boat, whatever works best for you at that time. But if you do want to talk to me, which is great, I love talking to you guys, what you can do is you can go back to the Human Resources Subject Guide. You can go to Main, and then over here you see underneath we have an email button, so you can definitely email me. I check my email quite a bit. I mean, not all the time because, you know, I have a life, but I do check it quite a bit. So if you do email me, if it's a work day, I should get back to you within the hour. If it's a weekend, probably not. I'm going to be hanging out, reading books, you know, doing that kind of stuff. But yes, so you are a priority for me. I do want to make that clear. So if I do see an email from any of you guys, I'll definitely do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. But the other thing I want to show you is the schedule appointment. This could be really helpful for you if you need to actually sit down with me and talk something through. You can just click on schedule appointments. You can click on the day that would work best for you, the time, and then it just asks you a couple questions, and then you can confirm the appointment. You get an email, I get an email, it shows up on my calendar, and you have me for like an hour, whatever amount of time it is that you really need. So yeah, that's basically it for right now. Again, if you need anything, let me know. I will do my best to help you with APA. Okay, hope you guys have an awesome day and an awesome semester. Okay, bye.